Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larbi.
Hey, welcome back. It is Sarah Larbi. You are listening to Where Should I Invest? Today, we have Ross Nedaee, who is a real estate investor, realtor, and also a YouTube host, hosting his own real estate investing show. So check that out as well. We have a great conversation about how he got started originally by buying a pre-construction condo in Toronto and how he scaled up from there. So a great story, but Ross also has an awesome show where he's got lots of tidbits on real estate investing and interviews a really wide range of awesome investors as well. So check that out. And other than that, guys, I hope everyone is doing well. Obviously, from a real estate investor standpoint, the elections didn't necessarily turn out how we were hoping, but we got to make the most of it and we've got to move forward. So on that note, let's bring in Ross. I hope that you guys enjoy the podcast, and don't forget to leave a rating and review, and reach out to me if you have any questions at sarah@sarahlarbi.com. Ross, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me, Sarah. It's a pleasure being here.
I'm excited to have you. I think we met on Instagram.
Yes.
So I don't think we've met in person, but we've met on Instagram. I liked a lot of your stories. You're posting a lot of the stuff that you're currently doing, and that's how we started talking. So give us a little bit of background on how you got started in real estate investing.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to. As I mentioned, it's an honor being here. It's funny, I was listening to your podcast when I started the entire journey, so it's good to be actually at the podcast and sharing my journey. A little bit of background about me. Essentially, how I got started in real estate was back in 2013. I started with a pre-construction condo. At that time, I didn't know too much about the whole rental market and how you could BRRRR and all these other methods that are out there. Just like anyone else, I for majority of people, I came as a immigrant, war-torn country, actually, I should say. So I came with my parents. We started basically from nothing. The whole idea was to get educated, start in the corporate world, and climb the ladder. That was essentially what I was striving for. But over time, I realized, there has to be a better method. There has to be a better way to move up and scale up. I want to retire myself, and I want to retire my parents eventually. And corporate alone wasn't going to cut it. So I started looking for other options out there. Real estate obviously always comes up. And I feel like a lot of folks, when they search, that's the number one thing. It had always been something in the back of my mind, but I never really understood how it works. And saving up is the biggest challenge for many people. So this condo came across. A buddy of mine told me about it. And the plan was about $500 a month you had to pay. $2,500 was a down payment, believe it or not, on signing, which was unbelievable. I had just graduated from university. I was like, I'm sold. I didn't even know where it was located. I didn't care where it was. I'm like, $500 a month, I can afford that. Let's get it going.
So did it end up actually being a good deal at the end of the day?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it did take a little bit of time for it to be built. It is a waterfront condominium in Toronto in the Etobicoke Parkland region. And fair enough, by the time it was built, I was able to pull a HELOC out of it. And that's what's been helping me now take it to the next level. And I've been able to purchase additional investment properties. So my very first rental investment was back in November of 2020. So very recently, like about 6 months ago, where I purchased a property. And this is my best one yet. It was a home run, essentially.
Okay, cool. So I do want to dissect it, but before we get into all of that good stuff, so you bought a pre-construction condo, you made the payments monthly, I guess, until you had enough to satisfy the financing. Did you close on that condo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Close on it, and then did you move into it, or did you rent it?
Good question. Yeah, so it turned out to be my primary residence. I'm actually living there currently. So what I did was I closed on it, moved in there, and then decided to just pull a refinance on it, so a line of credit. And from that, I've been able to leverage that money to then go out there and purchase additional units.
Very cool. I mean, that's a great way for people to get started, right? As if they have equity in their current homes rather than having to save enough. Do you mind if I ask how much equity you had to get started in terms of actually investing and doing the other strategy?
Yeah, so I wasn't even expecting it to be that high, right? So I did pre-construction condo. This was back in 2013. I purchased. I bought it for about $400,000, And right now, the condominium in the market is about worth 650. When they appraised it, they came at 630. Was a while back, but basically, I was able to pull a line of credit of about $175,000 right there. So I was able to then play around with the $175,000 to purchase additional properties and use it for renovations and so forth.
All right. So you went from pre-construction to, it sounds like, the BRRRR strategy. Why did you go that route instead of going and doing another pre-construction?
Yeah, pre-construction is great. I love that you brought that up, especially for folks that are looking to start. When you don't have too much capital, I think it's a good way to segment, especially if the builders have some sort of payment plan in place for you, so you can spread it out over time. I think it's a great starting point. But the reason why I didn't want to go into pre-construction again is because it's one of those strategies where you have to just sit and wait. And rather than sitting and waiting, I wanted to just start building, a portfolio of equity and properties and so forth. And then that's when I discovered basically the BRRRR method, where you can essentially pull everything out and do it over and over again. And I'm like, this can't be real. I need to do this.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay. So just to date this, because some people might be listening to this maybe 2 years down the road even,
Sure.
can you share, so what year did you buy your second investment property, or your first, I should say, actually true investment property that you're not going to live on? This is 2020?
Right. This was in November 2020. Yep.
All right. November 2020, mid-pandemic.
Yes.
What were you experiencing in your mind? Were you excited? Were you fearful? Were you,
Oh, for
what
sure.
were some of the stuff that was going through your mind at that point in time when you're like, I'm just going to go ahead and buy something else?
Yeah. So for me, again, living in Toronto, the property that I bought is actually in Fort Erie. So it's long ways from where I live. So it was absolutely, critical for me to know what I'm getting myself into. And it was very nerve-wracking, right? Because I'm basically investing outside of my area of expertise, right? I didn't know anything about the market beforehand, but I knew I had to take action. I think we always say that, right? It's like you can sit there, analyze deals over and over again, but you have to pull the trigger. And I looked over probably 10 properties until I found this one. So I did do my analysis. I did do my homework. I spoke with local investors in the region to get an idea whether this is a good deal or not before, putting my money on the line. And I ended up purchasing essentially a multifamily. I figured multifamily will be the best way for me to proceed and then build my portfolio, just because you're not reliant on one tenant paying your bill, right? You have 3 units essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And you can spread the risk and, of course, increase the cash flow. And yeah, you're right. It was during pandemic, and people were thinking, "Oh, you know what? The market's going to crash. This is going to happen." I just stuck by the numbers, So I got a really great deal. I could not refuse. Right? It was listed actually for $420 at the time. I originally had missed out on the deal because it was sold conditionally. I overlooked it a couple of times because it looks a little bit run down from the outside, but insides were completely renovated. And most importantly, 2 out of the 3 units were being given to you vacant. So it's vacant possession.
And that in Ontario is a great thing, because you can pick your own tenants and you can reset your own rents.
Absolutely. It's very easy for you to be selective of who you place there, and of course set up market rents, which will help with the cash flow. So long story short, I basically got it under $330,000 instead of the $420. So I got $90,000 off the purchase price.
So why did they give you 90 grand off? Like, were they in an urgent, situation where they had to sell? Like, did you know why you got it so far below market?
Yeah, good question. So what I did was, like, I went in there and analyzed the property. I'm a realtor myself, right? So I went in there, I did the market research. I knew the asking was a little too much than what it's worth. In my head, I thought 350 was still a good deal. But when I went in, I checked out, the upstairs units was still tenanted, so it still needed some sort of renovations. So I calculated all the issues, things I need to basically replace or renew, and I took that to the bargaining table and then discussed that with the sellers to say, no, I'm going to have to spend X amount of dollars to get it to where I want it to be, and this is what I think it's worth. And before I did that, Sarah, I was actually even nervous because I'm like, I don't want them to turn me away, to be like, okay, buzz off, like you're asking too much. So I consulted with one of the investors, Sean Rhea, actually, and we ran the numbers, and he's like, you know what? Why don't you just ask? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm like, you're right. I'm going to just throw in 330. And funny enough, even the agent was shocked that the seller actually accepted it.
That's awesome. Now, you said you asked a lot of questions to the seller. Was this through the agent directly
Through the
or
agent.
the seller? Okay.
Through the
Okay.
agent,
I
yeah.
wasn't
And
sure if you had a chance to speak to the seller directly.
no, I wish that would be so much easier, but that doesn't happen in this world.
All right, cool. So you got this property under contract for what? How much was it?
330, correct.
330? So 330, 2 units vacant, which
Yeah.
is awesome, in Fort Erie, and you are a realtor, so you're able to essentially, do a little bit of your own back end, digging and looking at comps and that kind of stuff, which I'm sure is
Right.
awesome. So you got it, and then how did you? Because this is your first one, right? How did you piece your team together, your contractors, and figure out what you were going to do with this 3-unit property that you just
Yeah,
acquired?
so with this one, I felt a little bit at ease just because the renovations on 2 out of the 3 were already done. Upstairs was tenanted, so I couldn't really do anything till, there's a tenant turnover. But through networking, right? Like I started reaching out to folks that are in the Niagara region. There's a ton of Facebook groups, there's a ton of meetups and so forth. So even before I invested in there, I knew few people, right? So then it's all word of mouth. Hey, who do you know in terms of a good contractor? Or do you know a plumber?
Mhm.
Do you know an electrician? So having that sort of network and having those people around you is very critical. And I did have, a great mortgage agent that I work with. So they kind of told me, what to expect in terms of closing costs, how much I can appraise the property for, how much value it's going to bring to the table and so forth. So again, all these little homework you have to do beforehand, right? And I did have that sort of network already set up before I took that action.
All right, awesome. All right, so what did you end up doing with this triplex?
I still currently hold it. So this is going to be something I'm going to be sitting on for quite some time. I'm actually in the midst of renovating the upstairs unit. It's currently the vacant.
Mhm.
I'll be planning on house hacking myself, actually. So the goal here is, renovate it. It will be turned over completely after renos sometime this mid-month. Right now we're sitting in April. So mid-May is essentially when I'm going to get it refinanced. So I'll be able to pull essentially all my money out, plus some more, and basically live there for free, house hack, and save some money so I can get other investment properties.
So you're going from Toronto, and I guess, everything's online, virtual, more so
Yeah.
now than ever, and
Yeah.
you're a realtor, but you're going from Toronto to Fort Erie. Is that something that you've always wanted to do, know that you were doing, or is it kind of just fell into place that way?
Yeah, the reason why I made that move or decided to make that change is like you mentioned, right now, as long as you have internet, you can do anything remotely. So you don't even need to be physically in an office space or anything like that. Like my wife, she works in an office and so forth. So we're basically remote now, which is phenomenal. And secondly, because I service Niagara, I'm there literally every weekend. So for me, it's going to be even closer for work, where I can service my clients and, I'll pick up some off-market deals and so forth. So the goal is there to expand and grow that business there. So being presently at the city or the region will be a huge improvement and a huge help for me, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And you being a realtor for your clients as well, right? So you can kind of zip out and take a quick look at the property. So essentially you're going to live in one unit, you're going to rent out the other ones. Have you factored in, like, are you breaking even living for free? Are you cash flowing a little bit? Like, what does that look like with you in one of the units? Do you know? Have you
Again, because I got at such a great rate, and the market
Mhm.
rents are really great in Niagara region. Even with me living there, I'm probably gonna spend maybe $300 out of my pocket just for utilities and whatnot.
Mhm.
But the mortgage, everything else is already paid for, like by my tenants living there. So even after refi, I'm still gonna cash flow somewhat. If I take my expenses out of that equation, then I'm basically just breaking even, or I'm cash flowing about $100 still on top.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's awesome. What renos? You're talking about refi. What renos have you done with the triplex?
Yeah, so put in some new kitchen cabinets. I've basically redone the washroom completely, retiled it, new bathroom, new vanity, new bathtub, new shower. We moved the laundry. The laundry used to be in a quite little weird area. It was in the kitchen corner. We moved that, put it in like a little corner in a storage area. So that's sealed off. It has 2 bedrooms upstairs as well. So one of the ceilings was like a laughing plaster. So I completely knocked that down, put drywall. We're going to be putting pod lights. So it's going to completely look brand new. It's going to be a little more modern than what it was before. And I'm very excited because once that's done, it's going to be a completely different unit than it was previously.
Awesome. And what are you expecting for your after repair value?
Right now in the market, I'm looking at least 500,000 right now.
Okay. All right. And how much did you spend in total on the renos, or what are you estimating if it's not done yet?
Yeah, overall, I think with the, again, general maintenance over the years, that there were some, minor things I had to do as well, like some plumbing issues and whatnot. So I think overall, I'll probably be spending around $10,000 in renovations.
That's not a lot. So you bought it for 330, 10 grand of renos,
Mhm.
and your ARV was how much? What do you say? Five something?
500.
500.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good. So you're going to be taking that cash
Yeah.
and recycling it essentially into another property. Have you found your next one, or are you still looking?
Always looking, Sarah. I have few that I'm looking into getting under contract actually. So I didn't stop there. Right immediately, after this, I purchased 2 more triplexes in Sarnia.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay. Awesome. Awesome. So you got 2 triplexes in Sarnia, and where are those at in the process?
Yeah, so those ones are also under construction currently. So I was able to get vacant possession. When I purchased it, it was with tenants, but I was able to negotiate with the previous tenants there to get cash for keys. So the whole triplex is currently sitting empty, and I have my contractors currently renovating it. So that one was a bigger project than this, of course. But I purchased it at such a great value. I purchased this one in particular for $160,000.
Wow. Okay, cool. So ARV you're estimating to be what?
ARV 350.
350. And how much in renos are you thinking of spending?
It would be about 60,000 rentals.
Okay. All right. So still good for, budget for renos, especially in COVID where the pandemic jacked up all the prices of everything.
Yeah.
And then how did you find your contractors? Like, how did you figure out which ones to work with?
Yeah, network. I reached out to folks that I know. Actually, Ben Bergen is another good friend of mine now. Reached out to him, got some contacts through him, and was able to hire some great contractors currently working on the project.
Hence, networking is key, because it's who you know, right? That is going to give you these connections to the people to make your life so much easier. So you bought these 2. How much was the other one that you bought? One was 160. Yeah. How much was the other one?
Yeah, so this one was a strange one. The owner was offloading 3 properties that were right beside each other. So there was 2 triplexes, and then right in the middle was a duplex. The triplex one was listed for 200, the other one was listed for 170. In the middle was the duplex was 200. So I ended up getting the triplex for 190 and the other triplex for 160. So I negotiated about 10K off each of those asking prices. The other one is fully tenanted right now, and I'm in the midst of also looking into separating the hydro meters, so at least I can change that a little bit and offload some of the cost. But as is right now, that property is cash flowing about 300 as is.
All right, cool. So essentially, you got the 1 triplex vacant. Can I ask, and you got cash for keys, can I ask what the tenants were paying before you got them out?
Sure, yeah. So upstairs was about $790. The upstairs unit was a single bedroom. Downstairs was about 800, and that one was a 2-bedroom, a bigger space. It was a family living there, and the basement was also about 800.
Okay. Now, just in comparison, like what's market rents like now that they're gone? Like, let's just do the same thing: upstairs, middle, basement. What are you looking to get in rent for each of those units now that you can reset it?
Yeah, for sure. So once I'm done renovating them, once they're gonna look like spectacular, I think I could easily get 1,100 upstairs. The main floor, I think about 12 to 1,300, and then the basement probably about 900.
Okay, so huge lift. And what's your expected cash flow after you're completed, refinanced, and everything? I don't know if you had the time to take a look at that, but if you wouldn't mind sharing, that'd be amazing, just so people get an idea.
For sure. I'm projecting around $300 to $500 easily. I haven't done the full math, but I think once I fully recover, because the mortgage rate is so low, is minimal. I think I'm looking at least $500 a month, I would say, conservatively.
Okay, per triplex.
Per triplex.
Okay. All right, cool. And that's after the refinance. And are you expecting to pretty much get your whole down payment and rental back, or a portion of it?
Yeah, no, this one will be a full BRRRR. So I'll be able to pull out all my money out of these 2 properties.
Oh, congrats. I mean, you're starting, but you're kicking ass, right? Like you're doing awesome right from the start. So that is great. And, obviously this is an uptrend market. So the market's on our side, but it sounds like you're still planning around the cash flow regardless. So if things do happen, you're still cash flowing, which is important. And I want to go back to cash for keys, because it's not always as easy as we make it sound.
Yeah.
We also have to just understand that there's like a bunch of legalities around asking for something vacant.
Hmm.
Especially in an area like Ontario, where
Yeah.
you might have a something similar where you are. But in order to get something vacant, it's not always as black and white. It's not as easy. But can you walk us through like your story and how you worked around that to make sure that like it was done as well as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. This one was actually a pretty difficult story or case, I should say. So I had some tenants that were living in the basement. I remember even the first day when I went to see the property, when I was doing like going through the showing, essentially, they were complaining. They were just complaining about the living situation and how they hated it and so forth. So I knew that they weren't happy, right? So right off the bat, whether it was the condition that it was at, or the landlord wasn't treating them right, who knows? So right off the bat, I knew that there's an opportunity for me to come in and try to help them, right, get to another place and maybe help me get vacant possession. So I spoke with them and I asked them, I'm like, would you be willing to relocate? I understand you're not happy here. I heard you were complaining quite a bit. Yeah, they were in the basement. They kept saying, it's really cold in here, even though the air, the temperature was fine, basically, because it's controlled on the main floor. It was like set at 24, room temperature and so forth. And they said, you know what? Yeah, we may be considering moving somewhere. So I'm like, okay, well, what would that take? What would you like me to help you with? They said, well, if you pay, 2 months rent, then we'll be out of here. I'm like, okay, consider it done. They looked at me like, well, how do we know that you're going to pay us? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm going to put this in paper. It's going to be on the contract. It's going to be all there. They're like, no, I want the money first. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, there's no guarantee that I can do that, because what if you don't leave tomorrow? Like, I can't work with you on that deal. So we kind of went back and forth. And funny enough, I had an entire conversation with them for 2 hours. And the next day they didn't remember the conversation. So it's one of those tenants.
Wow.
Again, it ended up being them declining, saying, we're not moving. We want to sit there. I'm like, okay, no problem. Like, I'm not pushing you out. If you want to move, I'm here. Let me know. And then randomly, they just called me one day and they said, you know what? We're looking to leave. We want to go to Toronto. Can you buy us our train ticket? I'm like, okay, I'll take care of that for you too. And then they went on, oh, can you give us a hotel room? I'm like, guys, listen, like, this is not how it works, right? Like, I'm flexible, but you can't just nickel and dime me. Yeah.
Situation.
Right. They were trying to take advantage of me, right? So I'm like, no, like, this is it. This is where it ends. Do you want this deal or not, right? I just left it at that. And then they called me again a few days later, to saying, okay, like, we left. I'm like, what do you mean you left? Like, you just vacated the place and just abandoned it? Yeah. They're like, yeah, we did. Like, it's yours. I'm like, okay. So I sent my property manager. We changed the locks, the keys and everything. And then a few days later, I remember this is February. It's freezing cold. And I get a call midday to say, hey, we can't get in the unit. I'm like, you told me you left. This was 3 days ago. So I obviously changed the keys.
Did you pay them at that point in time already?
No. So
Okay.
they're technically still tenants. They're paying, right? Like, there has been no signed agreement whatsoever. So I told him, I'm like, listen, like, you told me you left. So I obviously didn't want anybody to walk in the property. It has to be locks had to be changed and so forth. And he goes, no, we're freezing. Like, my wife is really sick. Please let us in. Like, it's cold. I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, it is freezing cold. Like, I'm like,
And all of their belongings were out of the place, or they were still there?
They left everything in there. They just literally put their cats, everything. They just dumped a bag of cat food right on top of the bed and they just left. Like, that was it. Yeah, it was one of those, right? So I called my property manager. I'm like, listen, like, she was even upset. She's like, are you serious? You can let them back in? I'm like, it's cold. You know what? Like, it's okay. Just let them in, right? But that, Sarah, changed the entire dynamic, because they saw that I have a heart. Like, I'm a human being. And then when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, right? So that helped me kind of build the trust with them, because they realized, okay, this guy's not here to just kick me out, and he's actually here to help me.
Right.
So from that point on, they're like, okay, we'll leave. This time we're going to sign an agreement. Please just make sure that you are able to then help us, leave the premises, drop us off to the GO station. I'm like, yes, I'll come in at 6 a.m. I'll drive at 3 o'clock from Toronto to get there. I'll drop you at the GO station. No problem. They didn't believe me before, but then they believe me after the fact, because they're like, okay, this guy is actually going to come through with his, promises. So we did end up signing an agreement. We ended up negotiating on 1 month's rent actually this time. And they ended up, leaving the premises end of month. So
with all their stuff and their cats?
they left everything. So I had to get a dump truck. Yeah, exactly. The cats had to take to the shelter.
Hey, hang on a second. They left their cats too? What kind of tenants are these?
Oh man, the worst of the worst.
Wow. I thought like they would at least come back for their pets or something.
No, the cats were left there abandoned, so we took them to shelter, right? And then she was upset that we took the cats away. I'm like, what do you mean? You told me you left the place and you abandoned it, right?
And you got them to sign the N11, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So we got
an N11 form is what you signed with a date, and then only at that point in time when they give you the keys and you give them the cash. Like how did you guys do the transfer?
Yeah. So in this case, like I wasn't there presently, but my property manager was there. So we literally did a video call. So they wanted to see me there. I'm there physically. So they signed the paperwork and everything. And we agreed that once they leave I'm going to pay them the $800, right?
So you paid them and then they tried to come back for their cats.
No. So when they abandoned it, she was upset that we took the cats to shelter. At that time when they came back, the cats were gone.
Well, where are you supposed to put
the cats? They lost the cats.
Well, like, were you supposed to like adopt the cats?
That's what I'm saying. They just kind of left, right, and then I don't know. They expected me to just pick it up from that point on, right? Like it was just a weird situation, right? So
yeah, that's. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's some drugs in there.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, it was not
good on you to have, because that could have been a huge problem down the road. Like it's good that you got them in a spot where they were willing to work with you and leave, because that sounds like a potential like disaster tenant down the road.
Yeah, no, for sure. Again, it's unfortunately I had to assume those tenants, right? They would definitely not be my first choice.
So those are the ones that you assumed, and then the other two, they were vacant, like they vacated before you took possession.
The other two were the main floor was a family, and the first day that when I walked in, the condition they kept the place, I think they saw it on my face and they knew that I would want them to leave. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, when I told my property manager to go in there just to ask them if they were going to leave, they had boxes already packed up and ready to go.
Wow.
So they just asked if they could pay 1 month's rent. Yeah, so I got lucky with that one. Yeah, I'm like, sure, I'll pay whatever you need.
That was how many months rent?
So that one 1 month. So basically,
you offered them 1 month. They were already in boxes. They took it. Okay, that's awesome. And what about the last one?
Yeah, the upstairs. I actually relocated her to one of my other units, and the other property. One of the unit was vacant. The tenant was leaving end of month, so it worked out very nicely. So I basically gave her accommodations to move her on that unit, so that I can get the whole property vacant, so I can start renovation. So she was willing to.
Are they is that person coming back to that triplex unit after it's?
So we agreed that no, she's going to stay where she is. Yeah, she likes where it is, and there's no need for her to kind of relocate. Yeah, so. That helped me and helped her. I try to help her, because otherwise she was scrambling to find another place, and I'm like, I'll accommodate you, no problem.
Okay, so that is nice. Like it's good to have good landlords and good tenants to make sure that everyone works together. So now with her though, were you able to increase her rent going into the new unit?
So this one is actually, the unit is still a single bedroom. So I didn't want to ask her for more because she's under ODSP and government assistance. So I honored the same rate.
Like for like.
Unit.
Got it. So
exactly.
Similar unit and then the same pay.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So you got a whole unit. You can put all brand new tenants. You can refinance. Were you expecting the ARV to come back at for this triplex that's vacant? Yeah.
So this one, legally it's registered as a duplex, unfortunately, although it is a triplex that I purchased it. So when you do appraisals, right, they're going to appraise it as a duplex. Mm-hmm. So a duplex, I think the ARV is around 350 is what I can max push it.
Okay. And you bought it for 160.
And I bought it for 160. That's right.
Still very good numbers.
Yeah. I was trying to do a legal conversion in the basement, but unfortunately it doesn't meet the ceiling requirements, the height requirements. So the city wouldn't pass it unless I was supposed to dig the ground and so forth, which will be extra money. It's no point.
Well, and it doesn't make sense in a town like Sarnia, right? Where it's not like Toronto or Oakville, where if you do that, right, you will get a lot more lift than a small.
Yeah, it just wasn't worth it. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So it sounds like you've got some really good, really good deals done. What's next for you?
Yeah, I'm looking for more. I actually closed on a JV agreement with my partner, actually, another duplex in St. Catharines. We're closing on it next week. Again, because I'm a realtor, I have my eyes and ears in the market. So I picked up a great deal on this as well. So we picked up a duplex in that area. I think the price range is anywhere from 400 to 420. I got it on the contract for 365. So I made money right on the buy again. And the tenants that are currently living there, even with as is, without us doing any sort of work, you're looking at cash flow of 350 per month.
Okay, sorry, was this on the MLS or off market?
On MLS, yeah.
All right, so you're like, if you had to give somebody listening to this some insights on how you find these deals that are under market, like what are some of the things that you would suggest?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you have to look at the region, the area, right? I don't know if a person who doesn't have the same access points that I do as a realtor can do the same thing. I'm not sure. But essentially, I'm always looking at what's happening in the market, right? Little pockets. Once in a while, you're going to find a deal where somebody just puts it undervalued. They don't know what's going on in the market, right? Or they're motivated to sell it. They want a quick close and they want it out, right? So whereas others may want a bidding war to happen. So there's all sorts of things happening in the market. So what I look for is square footage is a very important key aspect for me, because that's how the appraisers look at the property when they look at the value dollar for dollar. The bedroom, of course, how many units, right? Is it a 2-bedroom unit or a 3-bedroom and so forth? And then location, you have to make sure you're not buying it somewhere where you're overpaying for something in a bad neighborhood, right? So those things are very important. So I always look out for those, and then I negotiate. I think you can say I'm a pretty good negotiator because I've been able to get some really great deals going on. So I try to build a great rapport with the agents and understand where they're coming from, and then create a win-win situation for both. So I don't nickel and dime anybody. I try to create a win-win to have both parties walk away happily.
Do you think it helps because you have one less person to go through? So like you're an investor and you're a realtor, and then you just can negotiate with them directly versus having to go through a realtor. That realtor goes through the other realtor, then they go to the seller. So you're kind of eliminating a step. Do you think that's a good thing, or do you think that could have its challenges along the way too?
I would say for me, it's been a blessing. I do love the fact that I can go directly deal with the agent, and I fully disclose that I'm looking to buy for myself. So I have to do that as part of legality. So they know, and I think that helps because then they know they can't bluff me, right? Like, okay, this person knows the numbers, he knows the area, he knows the market, right? So I can kind of get straight to the point to be like, hey, is this worth spending time on or not, right? Is this worth looking into or not, right? So it doesn't always happen. There has been deals where it's fallen apart and someone has bought over asking and so forth, which is normal. That's crazy market we're in right now. But for the most part, yes, it does help. I feel like for me, that's been my biggest, I think, advantage as a realtor has been being able to negotiate directly through, the listing agents versus going through another person.
Awesome. All right. That's really cool. Ross, thank you so much. I mean, we could keep talking because there's so much like insight and tips that you're sharing. And thank you for being so open with like your numbers and all that good stuff. But the next part is our lightning round. So Ross, I'm going to give you a series of 5 questions, and everybody gets the same questions. You're going to give the first answer that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So question number 1, what is your favorite real estate investing book?
Everybody's going to laugh at this, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I know that's the most common one. So I would say Slight Edge.
Slight Edge. All right. Very cool. I have not read that one.
Oh, really great book.
I'll have to add it to the reading list. Number 2, I don't know if you are a podcast listener. I'm guessing you are because you mentioned it in the beginning. And this doesn't have to be real estate specifically, but do you have a favorite podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the Andrew Hines podcast. I love your podcast, and Bigger Pockets, of course. I think Bigger Pockets is the biggest platform. I know it's American, but it does have a lot of great content to get started. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 3, what do you do for fun aside from real estate?
For me, real estate is 24/7 for me, but I would say my passion is also sports and basketball, I would say. So I'm a big basketball fan.
All right, very cool. Number 4, if you lost all of your money, all of your assets tomorrow, how would you start again?
Oh, that's a good question. I think if I lost everything, I think I would still be able to build, because once you have the knowledge, I think it's not difficult to rebuild, right? So as long as you can show somebody the numbers, the return on their investment, I think I could get back on my feet and get an investing. I may not have the money myself, but I could definitely be the partner, the active partner, and finding the deals and negotiating and getting tenants in and so forth. So I don't think it'll be a problem.
All right. And last question, if somebody has $50,000 and they want to get started, what do you recommend they do with that money?
$50,000 to invest in real estate?
Or anything. This is why it's an open-ended question.
Good question. I love real estate. I think real estate is the safest bet you can make in terms of investing. So I would say definitely put it in a real estate. You could definitely do stocks if you feel comfortable. Unfortunately, that's not my area of expertise. I stay away from that. But if you're looking for something for a quick return, you could private lend if you want, if you don't want to deal with tenants or anything like that. I mean, I know it's a small amount, but over time, I think it will compound. Or put it in pre-construction, I would say. If you don't have the knowledge yet, you don't feel comfortable taking on, tenants and whatnot, put in pre-construction. I think it will pay off by the time it's built.
All right, very cool. Great advice. Thank you for playing the lightning round. Ross, where can people reach out and find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually I have my own podcast. I forgot to put my plug in there. Yeah, so it's Real Estate Golden Nuggets. Folks can find my podcast as well. And you can always find me on Instagram. I'm pretty active on social media. So just my first name, Ross, ROSS dot my last name, Nedaee. You can find me on all platforms.
All right, awesome. And I always ask this at the end. Any final last words of advice?
I would say definitely networking is a huge component. I know, like, I reached out to folks like yourself, Andrew Hines, all these folks that have been in the game for quite some time to learn and pick your brains and attend meetups. Like the Right Club is a great starting point as well. You can definitely join some of those webinars over there to meet these folks, and then from there you can build a little network, because trust me, if tomorrow I want to invest in Brantford, then I know who to reach out to. So networking is very, very key.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ross. Thanks for sharing your insights, and it was great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larbi. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?